Welcome back to Cheche, live on Citizen TV. Our guests today are the chairman of TNA, Sakaja Johnson, and the Homa Bay women's representative, Gladys Wanga. We've been talking about security, their coalition performances, and of course, the fallout from security. The point that David was making before the break is that we're acting as if all the insecurity in this country stems from terrorism and from foreigners, whom we like to call aliens. But the fallout also has been seen on social media, with even the National Media Steering Committee complaining about the levels of hate speech against non-Kenyans. What are you doing about that? Because it just seems as if, more than a year after the elections, we're even more divided than we were before the March 2013 elections.
And Warwick, I couldn't agree with you more on these divisions, and that we are more divided now. And of course, the divisions have been propagated, continuously by the Jubilee government, looking right from appointments to so on. And now we are even beginning to blame foreigners and then taking on some really knee-jerk reactions. And I think I agree with David to the extent that he said, how do we just wake up one day and decide that now terrorists are our biggest problem, and so register all Kenyans afresh so that we get rid of these people? We had Pastor Benjamin saying that he was a relative of the woman who was murdered along with her daughters. And were these foreigners? Is this calling for digital registration of Kenyans to stem that insecurity? And Sakaja said earlier, you don't need to ask permission to secure Kenyans. Now we said we wanted some coordination center. Now we say we have the digital registration as the silver bullet that secures Kenyans, and we do not even need to ask even our own legislators about it. I think the biggest problem ailing the Jubilee administration is this knee-jerk approaches. I don't know whether they have realized that they are running a country, that they are not running, a small club somewhere where you wake up and say, hey, listen guys, this is where we are going, and everybody follows you there. This is a country that we are running here, and if we do not manage these divisions, and the casual manner in which we are dealing with these matters, what led us to 2007, 2008? What led us there? It was simple. People did not believe in the institutions that we had. And if we continue to propagate this kind of approach, then when we get to 2017 and we are further back than we were before 2007, 2008, then we are looking at a disaster in the making. And
so
I think
your point is that the lack of cohesion in the country has to do with knee-jerk responses from government?
Knee-jerk responses, lack of consultation, a propagated approach that continues to divide this country, for example, within appointments, lack of consultation, lack of wide, broad thinking, and just inexperience, perhaps.
No, I of course don't agree with Gladys Wanga. This government is not approaching its mandate by knee-jerk reactions. This is the first government in this country that, before elected, took more than 6 months to come up with a manifesto. And I was part of that process. We didn't just think of things that we'd like and would feel nice to do. We came up with a very well-considered manifesto. We have actually, and I think it's about time we found a way to get this to our governors, a manifesto for each and every county. Because we went through that process on the ground. It was consultative. Now, that is the mandate we asked for. Can we implement?
How does it make it a more cohesive nation?
The first pillar of our manifesto is Umoja. And within that pillar, what we are saying is that we need to create a situation where Kenyans feel as Kenyans, no matter where they are, where we deal with cohesion in this country. But
at this point in time, most Kenyans, especially the ones who feel that they're being targeted and profiled, don't feel like they have a stake in this country.
That isolated issue is an issue that even my committee in Parliament is taking up. Yeah? Because I chair the Joint Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity, which has members of Parliament.
Very crucial.
And
is
senators.
That being enforced by Jubilee?
No, what I'm saying is that I chair that committee. It was recently constituted,
right. But
that is an issue we're taking up on national cohesion and equal opportunities. And it is one of the committees that oversights every arm of government and the county governments, because you have senators and members of parliament of National Assembly, and that is an issue we're really taking up. Because
as you go, just go on, can you mention something about the National Cohesion Integration Commission and why it's in Izare? That falls directly under your committee.
Yes, that
why
falls.
Are there no commissioners?
That falls under our committee. The commissioner's term expired, and if you look at the act.
1 year ago.
Yes, if you look at the act, I'm sure you've seen the act of parliament. This is one commission that is constituted not by executive action but by parliamentary action. If you look at the transitional clause and the first clause of it, where parliament actually is the body, my committee together with the cabinet secretary are supposed to ask for members to apply to be commissioners, 15 names and a short list, and the president gives 8. 3 weeks ago I wrote a letter to the clerk of the National Assembly with respect to the Cohesion and Integration Commission so that we can constitute it. He responded. The legal team is working on an advertisement, and soon you will see it up. There are some people who've been thinking that this commission should be constituted by the executive, and I've been of an opposing view. Because I think of all commissions, this is a commission where you do not need people who necessarily are pledging
allegiance to the office
or a job to the CS or you know, to the executive. But when you know, if you discuss cohesion, then also let us discuss the actions that leaders might be taking to divide Kenyans, because the greatest source of lack of cohesion, of disunity in this country has been politics, and as leaders we must be careful.
But Sakaja, you are digital and you go through the social media.
Yes.
And I can tell you now that if you go to that social media, some of the people who are doing it are actually Jubilee or ODM activists. Well-known activists.
They're not registered activists.
People,
the individuals who
people you
profess,
can control.
No, we don't. You see, the individuals who profess allegiance to CORD or Jubilee, and it's been going on. That is why we need legislation around
Wanga,
the
you want to
media.
come in? Yes.
I wanted to say something before I lose it on the manifesto. And this is the problem Kenyans have with manifestos. And if you look at the Jubilee manifesto, it's a beautiful piece of paper, you know, and it was launched most magnificently. So when Sakaja refers us back to the manifesto...
No, you can't say the same about
well, maybe not
what was the more realistic, you know, the more realistic and modest manifesto. We didn't have, and that is not true. We didn't have to announce it and put it in the launch and sort of put the papers to say we had a modest manifesto that we knew we could implement. The very glamorous manifesto that we saw is the problem that we have landed in now. What we are saying is not what is on the piece of paper. What we are saying is how do you realistically implement it? And this is where the failure has come crashing and landing. And this is really where Jubilee has fallen. Because they have a beautiful piece of paper that they have no idea how to put to practice.
But if we go back to cohesion and to follow on from what was thought, at the moment, security operation perception that Somalis and people from the Muslim community are being targeted. Go onto social media. I was on social media last night, and you will, in fact, you'll find people saying that ethnic Somalis should go back to Somalia. You'll find people, saying all sorts of things about the religion. So what are we doing, both on the party level as individuals, as leaders, to scale down? Because this is the sort of commentary you see around elections. Hate speech, targeting members of one community.
You see,
why is this still a problem for us?
The problem is because as a country, and this is neither Jubilee or CORD issue, as a country, we've never defined our identity. We have many small identities. And we ask ourselves, are we just 40 million people within the same border with different identities? And over the past 40, 50 years, that has been perpetuated because different regimes then have built fiefdoms or kingdoms around their people. We must create an identity. You cannot have a vision without an identity. What does it mean to be Kenyan, Makali? What does it mean to be a Kenyan? Is it just if you're a Luo, you're a Kenyan? Is it just if you're in this? And that is the first thing we must deal with, honestly. Now, politics aside, we've discussed politics. Politics aside, let us read the preamble of our constitution. What are the values that make us Kenyan? Why is it that when we see a great show at the Boston Marathon, we coalesce? Now those are the things we need to deal with.
But that's the question I'm asking you.
Now those are the things we need to deal with. First of all, by creating a Kenyan identity. That is the first thing you must do. Number two, you must make sure there's equal opportunities for any Kenyan wherever they are. On the basics.
I think as
you must, and devolution goes a long way in creating that.
Don't get on another project of creating.
Just a minute, Ms. Wanga.
No, you must.
No,
it's not a project. It is a big problem. We don't have it. In the US, they have it.
As leaders,
every child at class 5 can sing the anthem.
Yeah,
over time.
I think as leaders, leaders in this country, and this is, I agree with Sakaja, neither Jubilee nor CORD. we must know that we have a country in our hands that we are protecting. We must know that we have people who follow us, that when we say something, when we make utterances, it really has a big impact. And I think, and this is where we're saying we have a responsibility, as of course as media, it's a bigger responsibility. As a leadership, it is an even bigger responsibility to moderate whatever the circumstances, and whatever, you know, however much you feel your people have been, you know, offended. I think it is a huge responsibility that is bestowed upon us, you know, upon election or appointment, to be able to take, you know, to really moderate the mood. So I think, and I really just like to appeal to, take this opportunity to appeal to Kenyans on social media, that this is, it is wide, it is read by everybody, and the more we continue to throw in those jabs, the more we build momentum. But the government must take the...
I think would work. We need to tell Wanga and...
Just a minute. The government, you didn't complete your thought. The government must?
What I was saying is there has been consistency in sort of... We are supposed to be moving together, but when we looked at appointments, for example, it's sort of saying, are some Kenyans less than others? No. You know, the questions have continued to grow. So this is where we must, you know, have leadership from there moving forward. But I have already said that as leaders of this country, we must take responsibility.
I think what we need to tell Wanga and Sakaja is one, I think it's you guys who don't understand this country. You are so much ODM, so much Jubilee, as we are Kenyans, and we want to see things moving on.
I never saw politicians.
You know, when politicians are, like now, the problem that I think we are having, and so much to Jubilee, and Wanga has talked about it. Yes, you have the numbers. Use the numbers well. I remember in the late 60s when the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta had differences with Jaramogi. He made a very important statement. Odinga told him, "Wewe ndio uko na nguvu. You have the power." And Kenyatta replied, "And I'm going to use my power well for the good of Kenyans." That's how leadership is supposed to be seeing things. One of the commentators, respected commentators, the other day said that our politicians, and especially Jubilee, are suffering from a condition called hubris, which he said is that overbearing arrogance. Yeah,
exactly. I mean,
that overbearing
I think could be further from the
pride, arrogance, and too much belief in their merit. You know, I think having the power should humble you to come down to a level where now even your opponent will say, "I think this person deserves to be in this leadership," and that's what
I've never seen any more humble leader than our president and his deputy, ever. And many members of God will tell you that.
They are, but they are foot soldiers.
Now, isolate the people who are, if I'm arrogant, tell me, Sakaja, you're arrogant.
They're foot soldiers.
If somebody else is arrogant, deal with that. But you cannot say that the Jubilee leadership is arrogant. Honestly.
When I talk about Jubilee leadership, I'm not talking about the president.
And some people, let me tell you, some people in court are not arrogant, not because they're not. Sometimes humility is a lack of humility.
We have a good president. We have a good president, Sakaja. But the foot soldiers.
David, you're making a point.
I was just saying that I think there is very little. I would agree with you that the president is humble, very, you know, nice guy. It is in the use of the power to achieve the objectives that Gladys is talking about. Bring people together.
I assure you we will do that.
The national integration.
Yes.
The allocations, the appointments. Those are the issues which will determine. The hubris is about the Jubilee types, the people, the politicians around this party. That's what.
But before we lose the point, I think for the first time, maybe even greater than the extent of the coalition government, for the first time we saw appointments being spread as far as they could be in terms of allocations. You can say, yes, maybe this community got a bit more, but listen, we have PSs from virtually every part of this country. We have 18 CSs, we have 43 tribes. You tell me how we can squeeze 18 into 43. Or maybe we should have decided to have one tribe per cabinet position, etc. But this government has actually
that cannot go unresponded to.
Okay, go ahead.
We have very few positions, the point Sakaja is making.
So we should have one per community.
Why do you give a whole bulk, you know, why do you give more than half of them to two communities?
No, that is not true.
And leave 40% for the rest to
that is not true.
Look at the cabinet.
Substantiate more than half.
Look at the cabinet.
Name me 9 of them from two communities.
Look at the cabinet.
No, name.
Yeah.
You know ODM has this habit of just saying things which sound nice.
I think it's not in dispute that there was disproportionate allocation.
It is
proven by fact.
No, just list nine. List nine from the community.
I don't have to list. I don't have to start naming names.
It is easy to say these things.
For Kenyans to
it is easy to say these things without any evidence. Of course, there are a bit more from certain communities, and this is something we're saying.
How much?
Not a bit more.
What is the percentage?
Let me
communities cannot have.
Compare this with previous.
No, now we are getting
and tell us whether we're progressing.
Bad with the worst.
No, tell us whether we're progressing. Of course, it's worse because when Raila was in the Grand Coalition, almost everyone on his side was, even in his office, was from one community. But I'm saying this: these issues have they're realized progressively. You must realize them progressively. But all of us have an opportunity in this country, and we want this government. And I am telling you, even on behalf of the government, that uniting Kenyans and creating cohesion is a priority of this government.
Ms. Wanga.
I think when Sakaja says a bit more, he knows that it's not just a bit more who are from just two communities. When we have 42 communities to share, for example, if you even have 6 or 7 from 2 communities, what message are you communicating out of 18 seats? You're saying that we are more Kenyans than others, and this is what is propagating.
Being a CS is not a sign of being a Kenyan.
This is what but these are the opportunities. I mean, these are the opportunities that should be shared.
That is the culture we must change. No, that's not the case.
That should be shared.
Now that is the culture that is backward in code. Let me tell you, the culture that until we have one of our person at this position, then our community
let me disapprove your
backward. It's a cake. It's a cake. The constitution says yes. No. There is a culture that if someone becomes corrupt, our people are being finished.
That we have moved.
If I don't have somebody from my village,
you know that you are weeping at death.
If I don't have,
the point is,
okay,
unity,
let him be honest.
Patriotism, the citizenship you're talking about building, arises from people feeling part of something. And being part of something means you share resources.
Are there people in our cabinet from
now? Those resources include public positions, which are
then tell me how you'd have shared it in
resource allocation.
If you are president, tell me how you'd have shared those positions.
I do not want to be stuck.
Actually, he's a panelist.
I'm just defining.
No, I mean, he must tell us how better
of building the country.
I think that question actually should be directed at Ms. Wanga. How would you have shared out the position?
Would you have done one per community? Just tell us.
I think for Kenyans to feel, and I think Honorable Sakaja, this cannot go, unanswered about bringing my party leader's name and saying everybody, there was a Luo. I think nobody was more. I mean, nobody really is more inclusive, than that.
But anyway, the point is,
that isn't true, and I can give you facts now.
The point is, it's not even Raila who's making these claims. It is Kenyans generally who are expressing dissatisfaction. I don't think it is.
And coming to this point, let me just come to the issue of appointments. If you have 18 positions, honestly speaking, why don't you even if you said majority communities can have 2 or another 2, and then others have 1 each, and
some sort of proportional representation.
Some sort of proportion.
When a cabinet was being formed, we were not rewarding communities.
It's a bit radical.
The first point is the first point was to create a team that you can work with to achieve your manifesto. That is the first criteria.
That is hiding.
The second criteria. No. The second criteria then was how do we spread this thing out? You cannot start from the position of become president. Okay, let me give 1 per community. That is, I mean,
I think would work.
No.
Okay, we're living on borrowed time. I'm going to close this, and you have to get to Parliament because of the reading of your bill. Yes.
This business of saying 1 from our community, those guys who are in that government do not represent my community.
That's a cake.
By the way, and that's been fooling us around. That when you have your own on top there, then you are okay. People are never okay with that.
And we
saw it during the former government. In the former government, we tried this Mukatenusu thing, 50-50. It depended on how you shared your Nusu. But the Nusu ended up also Wanga being shared by not only a community, but by a family. You see, we talked about the appointment of ambassadors in the last government of Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki. And actually, all those ambassadors would work, they were actually from the families of those in leadership, not from the communities. So we are talking of...
But that thing was condemned. You see, it's as if it was justified. It was never justified. Then nor can subsequent injustice or wrongdoing be justified. Don't use the past mistakes to justify subsequent mistakes. I don't think that holds.
I'm not saying we
cannot
justify.
be comparing backwards.
I'm just saying
that was wrong.
Let us not fool communities. That when somebody is there, is representing them.
Okay,
they are representing their own interest.
It is very easy to be negative, but also look at the positive elements. There are certain communities that have never held such positions. They're holding them now.
Okay, fine. Our time is up. We've had a lively and heated debate. You're sweating. You have to rush back to the National Assembly because of the reading of your bill. And so I'll go round the discussion table, really, to ask for your final thoughts and words. First from the panelists, and I'll come to our guest. David, you're not very happy with what you've heard.
Well, I think there is a panorama view of ideas we discussed or issues we
discussed. It was a very broad discussion,
I'll just deal with the two. One, which is to the opposition. I think I share the perspective or the view by Kenyans that not the opposition has failed, because I think the yardstick for failure, the job of the opposition is to critique government action, not necessarily to present alternative. In fact, to present alternative by critiquing what they are presented, because they're on the table. That's part of their work. So to say that shut up, we are doing this, or we shouldn't consult you, I think is not appropriate. But I think that the code, of course, has failed to present even the shadow spokespeople for those portfolios which have been set up by government. On that one, I don't think it's defensible. They need to do something about it. On the side of Jubilee in their performance, I think, as I outlined earlier, the approach is a bit, like a train that has no stops. We must be consulted. The government must learn to consult and must avoid the knee-jerk solutions. There are many, because government is not for 5 years. We are running a country. The government could change. What happens to the policies that you started without consultation because you wanted to achieve them regardless? Do they die after that? Even if Bakumi is not taken up by the whole country, will it die when the Jubilee leaves office? All these things, standard gauge railway, all manner of things, digital IDs. Consultation is important.
All right, thank you. Well, quickly, because he has to go for the reading of his bill.
Kenyans are saying the opposition should work better than you are doing. And that we are not begging, we are demanding, because we gave you votes, however few. And that's why we are saying, keep it up. We need to see more from you. For Sakaja, please, with your position, go and also influence the government. As I said earlier, there is a bit of too much posturing. There is a lot of showbiz in your running of affairs. There is also a lot of Nollywood. Change a bit. Deal with one issue, finish. Yeah, Nollywood. So, yeah, Nollywood, whether you call it Afro-cinema.
What do you mean by that? Matters of style over substance?
A bit of acting too much.
Okay.
You know? Don't exaggerate. You know? Even when you're acting, you take control of what you're doing. So that at least you can finish one thing, we see the other. Don't move us in circles. You took us to this issue of the wage bill. When we were so hyped about the wage bill, you moved us. Now you have gone to terrorism. We don't know what you are going to come up with next. So the best thing would be, as we are dealing with these issues, let us deal with them and clear them, so that as a country we can see that Jubilee has done something. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wanga.
I think as the opposition, we will continue to play our role of critiquing the government, of being the watchdog of the Kenyan people, because that is the mandate that they have given us. And we will not be intimidated by propaganda that the opposition has failed. We will continue to critique as much as we can. We will provide alternatives where we can. Kenyans have told us that we can do better, and we're taking that into account, and we're taking that seriously. And we're going to do much better than what we're doing as we move forward. So we are a government in waiting, for sure. And the way Jubilee is going, we await to take up. Yeah.
Sakaja.
Thank you. I think from our discussions, and you know, we live in Kenya as well, there are definitely areas that the government can improve. And I know the commitment that this government has in addressing not only its promises, but its mandate and its commitment to Kenyans and the lives of Kenyans. I don't want to ask Kenyans for patience, because government should deliver from the word go. But we, as Jubilee members, even in the National Assembly, even as chairs of committees, are also putting many of our cabinet secretaries to task. We know what they can be doing, But also government is doing a lot of good things. As for the opposition, I know she said they're in waiting, which is good, because I think they might keep waiting for much longer based on how they've been working. I think they definitely need to organize themselves better. They have opportunities to do that. There are very many brilliant people in the opposition, including Mheshimiwa Wanga, who have great ideas, but I think there's some leadership that is missing with respect to how they channel that brilliance. I think I can say on behalf of the Jubilee government that the issues that are dear to Kenyans are dear to us as well, and we will see action being taken, change being taken, and a lot is being done. There's a lot you do even before a crop is seen on the ground. There's a lot of germination that goes under the ground, and that is how we're going. And finally, I'd like to ask my colleagues and friends from the opposition to just move beyond the trauma of the loss and stop focusing on elections. Because today you hear this about the past election, tomorrow you hear this, the next election is going to be rigged. Let us work, at least even for the next 2 years. The last one we do politics, but for the next 2 years, let us just focus on working for Kenyans. About showbiz, I agree, maybe to some respects, maybe government has been a bit showy, yes, and a lot more needs to be done. It is also our work to oversight and to make sure that is done. But it is not a philosophy of Jubilee to be showy. Maybe we just have swag. You know, maybe
swag.
Swag.
Is this government or is this some fashion show?
But beyond that, you know, style is important, but delivery is paramount, and Kenyans want to see real action. And we, in as much as we're in Jubilee, we actually keep our CSS and government at large to task on many of these promises, because it is us, the politicians, at the end of the day, who will still go back to the Kenyan people in 2017 to ask for votes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So our thanks to the chairman of TNA, Sakaja Johnson, and to the Homa Bay Women's Representative Gladys Wanga for your time on Cheche this morning. Our time is obviously up. We've been living on borrowed time for a while now. Our thanks also to panelists Oweri Mburu, sitting in for Mutegi Njao, and David Makali. You've been watching Cheche on Citizen TV. Thank you very much for engaging with us. My name is Udwa Kamimo. Enjoy the rest of your week.